If you're a service business owner and you're curious about which is better for ad spend, either Meta or Google, you're going to find this training really interesting. Today, I'm going to show you a comparison and you can decide for yourself. Today's question is all about ad spend and where you should invest it. All right, everyone, welcome back to our weekly Q&A session. I'm glad that you tuned in. My name is Matt Law. I'm the CEO of Grow Inc., and I've been helping service businesses with their marketing since 2001. If you want to see more videos like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video. And if you'd like to submit a question to be answered on our channel, you can post it in the comments or send an email to questions@Grow Inc. That's GRO.INC. Please be sure to include the city you're emailing us from so I can mention you in our upcoming show. With that said, let's jump into this week's question. So today's question is from Linda. She is a marketing manager in St. Louis. Sounds like she's part of a company as well. She writes in, my company owns a roofing company near St. Louis, and we've been spending on Meta for a while. At first, the return was fantastic, but it is slowing down. Is Google Ads a better place? What are the pros and cons of switching our budget to Google? So these are great questions, and I want to thank you, Linda, for sending in a question. I want to break everything down. So it sounds like you guys are doing Meta ads, and there is a lot of momentum that has been shifted over to Meta with the new Advantage Plus AI targeting. Basically, what this does is it finds people based on their interests. So if you've ever been on Facebook or Instagram, Meta is basically actively monitoring what you are looking at and what you are consuming with the whole aim of feeding you more of that so you'll stay on the platform longer. So they can tell when you slow down and hover over an image. And if you do that, you're going to see more images like that. So they can also see when you click on something and you spend more time on something, or if you click on an ad, you're going to see more ads like this. So they are actively targeting you based on your behavior. In the example of a roofing business, you slow down over a picture of a house or a roof, or especially if you slow down on a roofing ad or click on a roofing ad, then you're going to get a ton more of that because you are identifying yourself as someone who is interested in roofing. The main problem is that if you do that, and you look at a roofing ad, you're going to see 20 other companies in the same area serving you up ads. So your question, Linda, is do I invest in Meta or Google? And what are the pros and cons of each? And really, should I switch over my budget? So let's dive in. Should I invest in Meta or Google? And I say you should invest in both. Google local service ads have a great ROI if you do it the right way. And so Google local service ads is where you pay per lead and not pay per click. I can also tell you that Google ads can generate a lot of phone calls and a lot of online leads, and they have high intent. Meta is great for remarketing, and it can find people who are not on Google. So I will first say you should try both. But you have to measure what is working. I want to give you some slides here and look at it with you. And you tell me what you would pick based on these results. And you're going to be surprised at what I'm about to share with you. So you're like, which is better? So this campaign right here, it's got 78 leads on Meta. You can see this is a 2025 campaign. And it ran and generated leads in the service business for $36 each. These are form fills. And you may say, hey, Matt, that is great. Would you pay $36 for a lead? I've had campaigns that are actually even less than this one. I just thought this was interesting. Here's another one. This is a Performance Max Google campaign. And you can see it generated 37 form fill quote requests for $92. It's pretty much the same amount of money spent. I'll go back and forth on those slides one more time. So here you can see $36 per lead at $2,800. They got 78 leads. Over here, they got 37 leads for $92 each. But what you're missing on this campaign is they also had 47 additional phone calls. Now, Google Ads, and we'll talk about this in a second, this is a much higher intent. So they are searching for a company and then filling out a form request. So even though the cost per lead is 3 times what it is on the Meta campaign, it's a much, much higher intent. And then when you look at the phone calls that they generate, actually, the Google campaign had a much, much, much higher return on investment. So which is best? Well, ultimately, you have to figure out the return on investment. And so what we do is we look at what is generating leads. So you have a cost per lead, but you also have to look at is the final, when everything closes out, what has the best return. Let me show you another campaign, which is on Meta, which is pretty interesting. This is a video awareness campaign that we have been testing out, and it's cool because it is a very, very small county. It's probably about, I think in the total county, their total target area is probably about 450, 500,000 people total. But this was about showing ads to people more than once. So we wanted to reach people 4, 5, 6, 7 times. So this company spent about $2,000. You can see $1,900 on it. But for that, they reached 791,000 people. So they are dominating the area in exposure. And what's crazy is last month, they had their absolute best month in leads they've ever had. So the year before, they generated around 100 leads. This last month, they generated over 140 leads, which were qualified, which are people that filled out forms or called in and were added to the CRM. So ultimately, you say, well, Matt, well, how do you know what works? Well, in the end, you test out a campaign and you put it in there and you let it see. You know, Meta will take off Google Ads and you try something new. But the only way to know what works is if you are passing on the lead source, like how did you hear about us, from the website and from the phone and all of that to the contact record in the CRM. So the way we do it is in CallRail, we will pass it on to the CRM and then they can activate that lead. It will create a contact through CallRail in their CRM and it will show where that call came from. We also ask all of our clients to ask the caller, how did you hear about us? And they should match up. When a form is filled out on a website or someone requests a quote on the website, it will then take that lead and it will pass on, it will capture the UTM data. It will say, hey, this lead came from Google. This lead came from Meta or Facebook or whatever. And so when you have all of that connected to the contact in your CRM, at the end of a couple of months, you can see which deals closed and where they came from and what the total ROI is on the marketing. And if you don't measure your marketing, here's what I'm going to tell you. You won't know what works. It's impossible to know what works because it's not being measured. So with that said, let's talk about the pros and cons of each platform, and we'll dig into this a little bit. So let's start off with Meta or Facebook. So there are some great pros. So with Meta and Facebook and Instagram, you can reach a lot more people. You can reach people that are not on Google, so they're not searching on Google, and you can reach them where you would not be able to reach them on Google because they're just not searching. So you can kind of find them, you can identify them. I will also tell you that leads are so much cheaper, and reaching people is so much cheaper in Meta than it is on Google. The cost per lead is so much cheaper. And so the Advantage Plus targeting is pretty easy to use. It really goes off of the creative. And so you could target people just with your creatives, like in search for a roof in your ad. And guess what? People that are searching for a roof are going to see your ad. Now, I will say Meta is a lot more complicated than some platforms like maybe Nextdoor, but it's more simple to set up and test than Google Ads. So there's a lot of pros of using Meta. Another thing I think is if you want to target a very small zip code, for example, maybe it's like the highest end houses in your community and you want to target those as a home service business, you could spend a couple $100 a month, $300 a month, and hit those people over and over and over again so that your business is almost like a household name to them. So some of the cons of Meta is that people are not actively searching for you. They're kind of doom scrolling and they don't really care about you. A lot of times they will click and fill out a form and not even remember it. There's spam and bots on there as well. So the leads are much lower quality. Leads will also require almost an instant follow-up and a call to get them to convert, because they are like, man, as soon as they click on your ad, they're going to see 1,000 ads just like yours. There is an increasing competition in service businesses, especially for getting your business. And so there's a lot of tire kickers and a lot of competition. So there's definitely some cons to it as well. Talk about Google, and I'll give you some pros and cons of Google. The biggest pro with like Google ads or local service ads, or even organic or local, whatever you're doing in Google, is that people are actively searching for companies. And so sometimes people are like, well, Matt, you generated 100 leads for that company. And here's what I tell them. I said, well, this is 100 leads, but this is not anything on Meta. So these are people actively searching for you and filling out a form on your website. So it's not even like a squeeze page. They're coming to a website, or they're calling the company and giving in their name, their address, and all of that to request a quote. And the person answering the phone is adding them as a lead. So if you talk about 100 leads from Google versus 100 leads from Meta, I mean, you'd have to probably get 600 leads from Meta to equal 100 quality inbound leads from Google. So Google, people are actively searching, and you could say Google, Yahoo, Bing, or Microsoft, whatever. This is people that are proactively searching. It's a much, much higher quality lead because they are high intent. They are looking for a company. And so it's substantially better. Also, when you reach back out to the lead, they are more likely to answer the phone. So if they fill out a form on the website and then you call them, they may not be reaching out to 20 different companies. They may only reach out to your company because they've read your reviews or things like that. So the response rate to leads is also much, much stronger. So in summary, if someone told me I could have 500 Meta leads and form fills on Meta, or 100 really proactive Google leads, I would bet there's more revenue in the Google. Maybe not 500, but 300 for sure. 400, it would be close. What I'm saying is you have to have a ton more Meta leads because the intent is low as compared to Google leads. And so obviously some of the cons of Google is that leads cost a whole lot more, substantially more. And they could be 200 or 300% more to get a lead from Google as compared to Meta. And another con is that it's very, very complex to set up and manage Google Ads the right way, because you got to be able to track phone calls and you got to be able to track conversions. And if you don't give Google the right conversion data, then what ends up happening is like your campaigns are not going to ever optimize because they don't actually know who's converting. So Google Ads is much, much more complex. And listen, guys, I've been doing Google Ads since 2001. It has changed so much, right? Google comes on the scene, takes over Yahoo. I remember it when Yahoo was the big player. They come on the scene and they just take over, and ads has changed year over year over year, not in the best interest for business owners, but in the best interest for their shareholders. If you're doing local service ads, which is a pay per lead, that has become more expensive as well. And with AI and all these things coming into play, I don't expect ad costs to go down. I expect it to be more competitive. So I've given you the pros and cons of each, and there are pros and cons. So which do you use? Well, in my opinion, you should use both. But the problem is with most businesses, they don't know how to measure their marketing. And if you don't measure your marketing carefully, you don't know what is working. So you need to identify which campaigns are giving you the best ROI to determine what works. And what I think with most businesses, it's very easy for them to measure Google local service ads because there's a list of leads. It's easy for them to measure Meta leads because there's a list of leads that are coming through these form fills. And so they measure them, and then they've got a whole slew of other leads that maybe come from a referral, or maybe they come from organic, but it's hard for them to measure Google ads. What I want to tell you is you have to be able to measure everything to figure out what works best. And then you got to tie that revenue to each job you close so you can figure out the ROI. So the next question was, should I switch my budgets? Well, if you're not spending on Google, then I would just tell you right away, you should allocate some dollars there. And the easiest place to allocate, I think this was a roofing business, the best way to do it is to allocate some to local service ads. You can go up and set up a local service ad account pretty easily. If you're not spending anything, you could test it out. I just did a training on local service ads recently. It tells you exactly how to set up your account. I think that will be helpful. I would also invest in Google Search. Google Search, you can set up goals for phone calls. You can set up goals for form fills on your site, and you can measure that as well. We see great results with Performance Max campaigns, but you need to do those second, because Google has to know about your conversion data. And you should know, just like with Meta taking time to get working the right way, it takes time with your Google account to get set up. So you're not using Google, and I would just start testing these out and seeing what works. All of our clients, we set up for Meta and for Google, along with a ton of other marketing activities as well. But you should be testing this out, but just realize it's going to take up time, because you're going to be spending money for a few months while your conversion data is building. So Google's learning who to, who's a good fit for your ads. Now, if you're not spending money on Meta on the other side, you should be doing the same thing. And you can do lead forms and squeeze pages, and you have to really come up with some pretty creative offers, some videos and good images. And remember, just like Google, it takes time, because Meta has to find your target audience. And once you get it kind of figured out, you can kind of begin to get leads. And then from the leads, it's going to take a couple months to figure out what the return on investment is. But what makes this hard is that you'll find people out there who are like, hey, here's what I did and I'm successful. And so you'll see ads, or there's going to be people in your community, not maybe in your community, or maybe your peers online, or you go to a conference and they're going to say, hey, here's what I've done, and I'm making $1 million a year just on a Meta ad. And I'm making $1 million a year just on the Performance Max campaign. And so they're saying, hey, here's what I'm doing, but here's what you need to know. You're going to find people all around you that are saying what they've done to be successful. This is an alarming thing to be aware of. They have all of their eggs in one basket. And I always encourage our clients, you should diversify, we should measure it. And if it works really well, we can spend more money there. But if you don't measure it, you don't really know what's working, but I would still diversify. Secondly, you'll find people who have scaled really fast with just one form of marketing. And again, they have all of their eggs in one basket. And so I will tell you, Meta ads is exploding with so many people wanting to do Meta ads, and so many marketing agencies that only do Meta ads. And the thing is, it's the AI targeting. And so they're picking up big retainers, but I do see Meta becoming much, much more saturated. And is their success story from a year ago? Because a year ago, technology has changed tremendously in Google and Meta over this last year. So it's changed a ton. AI is taking over, and it's not making things any cheaper, by the way. So my suggestion is you balance and you invest in all of these places and you measure. A lot of times when I see business owners that are really struggling, like, hey, I got to do this or the next big thing, they're looking for a magic pill or a magic potion, and there is no magic potion. And a lot of times it's a business owner that's comparing themselves to another guy that grew by like 400%, 500%, and then sold, and then he did it again. Well, you don't know how much they spent in advertising. You don't know what they invested into that. And so my suggestion is be balanced. Spread your marketing, figure out what works, and then double down on what it does. But don't compare yourself to some guy across the globe or across the country. Look at the companies that are your competitors in your town and say, am I doing a better job than the guy down the road? And if you're doing a better job than the guy down the road, right, and you're winning against the companies in your own backyard, then you can grow and you can scale. But the first competition is not against the guy that grew by $20 million. It's you got to do a better job than the guy in your own backyard and be the best that you can be. And so if you don't have enough money to invest in all these things, you start where you're at and you measure everything. But I also suggest you don't just invest in ad spend like Meta or Google. Our clients invest in local SEO. So we set up all their citations. They invest in websites that convert and organic SEO. And all of that, by the way, feeds into ChatGPT and Google's AI. We also work on their marketing message so they have a clear, unique selling proposition that makes them different than everybody else. They work on automation, right? And referral campaigns and getting reviews and all of these things. So I think the biggest problem is a lot of these companies are putting their eggs in one basket. And when there's a change in Meta or it becomes more competitive, or there's a change in Google and it becomes more competitive, and they've saturated that area in that one channel, they're going to find themselves in a bad situation. My suggestion is to diversify, learn what works, and increase in that investment in that area. But it all comes down to you have to be able to track your marketing. You have to be able to measure your marketing. So if you're not using a call tracking tool, you're already in trouble. If you're not passing on that UTM data, that urchin tracking data from where that lead comes to your CRM, and at the end of the month or end of the, quarter saying, here's all the deals we closed. Where did they come from? You're not asking people how they heard about you. You're not going to be able to figure that out. And by the way, referrals are a huge part of service businesses. And so you should be getting referrals right away. You should be asking them to send you business, have a referral program alone to help you grow. So there's a lot of things in here that I've gone through with you to try to help. I want to kind of end up by just sharing, we've got a ton of amazing resources. If you found this video helpful and you're like, Matt, I would like to learn more about what you're talking about, I will tell you we've got a really great book. It's 100 pages, and you can request our free resources by clicking on the link in the description. You can get this book. It's 100 pages. It's available in digital and audio formats. We had it professionally recorded so you can listen to it while you're on the go. If you like to read books, you can download the PDF, the Kindle version, the Apple version, or the Android version. You can read on any device or iPad. We also have there some checklists, and on top of that, we have our 12-part training course, which I talk about marketing, measurable marketing, a whole session on that, and it's all for free, and we're happy to share all of that with you guys. With that said, I would just encourage you guys, if you're interested in submitting a question to our channel each week, what you can do is you can drop it in the comment section below, and we will be happy to answer your question and maybe consider it on an upcoming episode. If you'd like, you can also email us at questions@gro, that's grow.inc, and we'll consider adding your question to our show. If you would subscribe and like this video, there's a good chance you'll be able to catch our next weekly Q&A for service businesses just like yours. As always, I appreciate you tuning in, and I hope you have an amazing day.